Every manifestation teacher you've ever followed has given you the same instruction: raise your vibration, feel the feeling of the wish fulfilled, align with abundance. And when you're buried under the weight of losing someone, that advice lands like a slap. Because grief doesn't care about your vision board. And if you've been trying to manifest through loss the same way you'd manifest anything else, you've been fighting a war with the wrong weapons. Grief rewires how your brain processes desire. That sentence sounds abstract until you've lived it. You sit down to visualize your future, and instead of possibility, all you feel is the absence, the empty chair, the phone that stopped ringing. Your body remembers what your mind is trying to override, and the body wins every time. Most manifestation frameworks assume a baseline. They assume you can access feelings of gratitude, excitement, or certainty on demand. They assume the emotional thermostat in your chest can be adjusted with a few minutes of focused intention, and for someone functioning within a normal emotional range, that works well enough. Grief obliterates that baseline. The thermostat is broken. You're standing in the house trying to adjust the temperature while the walls are missing. So what actually works when the foundation you've been building on collapses? The first thing to understand is that grief changes your relationship with time. Manifestation relies heavily on future focus. You're reaching towards something that hasn't happened yet, pulling it closer through belief and aligned action. Grief yanks you backward. Every memory becomes a gravity well. Your attention keeps looping to what was, to what should still be here, to the version of the future that included someone who's gone. Trying to force your focus forward while grief pulls it back creates a kind of psychological tearing. You feel it as exhaustion, as fog, as the strange guilt of wanting anything at all, when loss is still this fresh. The approach that works in grief starts with something that sounds counterproductive. You stop trying to feel good. Traditional manifestation says match the frequency of what you want. In grief, the frequency you can access is narrow. Some days it's numbness. Some days it's anger so hot it surprises you. Some days you feel almost normal for 20 minutes, and then a song comes on in the grocery store, and you're gripping the cart, trying to hold yourself together. The idea of feeling the wish fulfilled, during those 20 minutes of normalcy, of trying to capture that window and stretch it into a visualization session, adds performance pressure to a nervous system already running on fumes. The alternative is working with grief as a current instead of swimming against it. There's a concept in therapy called pendulation. Your emotional state naturally swings between activation and settling, between distress and momentary calm. A healthy grieving process lets that pendulum move freely. You cry, then you laugh at a memory, then the weight returns, then you notice the sunlight on the kitchen counter, and something loosens for a second. The pendulum is doing its job. Manifestation during grief means placing your intentions in the settling moments, those brief windows where the weight lifts slightly. You don't force a visualization, you make a gentle, almost whispered request. Something as simple as holding the thought, I'm open to what comes next. The intention is planted like a seed in wet earth. You don't stand over it demanding it grow. You let the rain do its work. This is where the approach diverges from everything the mainstream community teaches. Standard practice says repetition, intensity, conviction. Say it louder, feel it deeper, believe it harder. In grief, intensity backfires. Your system is already flooded. Adding more emotional charge, even positive charge, overwhelms a container that's already cracked. The manifesting that works during loss is quiet, low voltage, consistent, but gentle, the way you'd speak to someone recovering from surgery. And there's a biological reason this works better. When you're grieving, your body maintains elevated stress hormones for weeks or months. That chemical state makes your brain interpret emotional intensity of any kind as a threat signal. A powerful visualization session that would normally feel expansive can trigger the same alarm bells as a panic attack when the baseline chemistry has shifted this far. Working gently keeps you below that threshold. The intention registers without triggering the alarm. But the shift in technique is only half of it. The deeper change is in what you're manifesting for. Grief strips away the superficial. You've probably noticed this already. The things you wanted 6 months ago feel hollow. The car, the promotion, the specific relationship outcome. Loss has a way of burning off everything that was never really yours to begin with. What remains after that burning is raw, essential, and strangely clear. People who manifest through grief and come out the other side almost always report the same thing. Their desires changed. They stopped reaching for achievements and started reaching for experiences, for presence, for the kind of connections where you actually say the thing instead of assuming there's always tomorrow. The grief taught them what assumptions cost. This recalibration is where grief becomes, paradoxically, one of the most powerful catalysts for authentic manifestation. When you've lost someone, you stop performing desire. You stop wanting things because you think you should want them, or because social media told you to add them to your dream life checklist. What's left is the marrow-deep stuff. The things you want so fundamentally that even grief couldn't dissolve them. Those desires carry a different charge. They manifest differently because they come from a different place. Think about the last time you set an intention from a place of genuine clarity versus a place of aspiration. Aspiration has noise in it. Comparison, social pressure, the imagined approval of people whose opinions you tell yourself you've stopped caring about. Clarity is quiet. Clarity says one thing and means it all the way down. Grief is a brutal clarity machine. So the practical framework looks like this. During active grief, you release timelines completely. The Manifest in 21 Days content was designed for a system operating at capacity, and yours is running a massive background process. Energy that normally goes toward creating is being rerouted toward healing. Respect that. The manifestation will take longer, and the things you attract will look different than you expected because you're becoming a different person through the loss. You work with micro-intentions instead of grand visions. One small, true desire per day. Held gently, released quickly. A single sentence written in a journal before bed, something like, "I'm ready for the next version of my life to include joy." That's enough. That's a complete instruction to a system that's paying attention. You let grief metabolize fully without trying to spiritually bypass it. Every manifestation teacher who tells you to raise your vibration out of grief is asking you to skip a process that your body requires for completion. Unmetabolized grief doesn't disappear, it goes underground, and it sabotages from there. It becomes the invisible resistance in every future intention you set. The block you can't identify, the thing that makes you visualize your dream life and feel nothing. That numbness has a source. The grief you try to vibrate your way past. The people who struggle most with manifesting in the years after a loss are almost always the ones who performed recovery instead of actually doing it. They posted the gratitude lists. They said the affirmations. They skipped straight to "everything happens for a reason" because sitting in the unreasonable, meaningless ache of missing someone felt too dangerous. And their manifestations reflect that hollow foundation. Things arrive but feel empty. Goals are reached but satisfaction evaporates on contact. The capacity to receive was never rebuilt because the grief was never truly processed. So if you're in it right now, if you're reading this from the thick of loss and wondering whether your dreams died with the person you're mourning, here's what I'd offer. Your dreams didn't die, they're dormant. The same way a field goes fallow between harvests. The soil needs time to restore what was depleted. Planting before that restoration is complete produces weak crops. Waiting feels like losing time. It's gaining depth. The version of you that emerges from fully processed grief has access to a kind of emotional bandwidth that the pre-loss version simply couldn't reach. You've been cracked open, and while that cracking is the worst thing you've felt, the expanded capacity remains after the pain recedes. Your ability to feel loss at that depth is the same ability that lets you feel fulfillment at a depth most people never access. One current, two directions. The depth of your grief is the exact measure of the joy you're capable of receiving. That isn't comfort, that's architecture.